with focus on the assignment given to the new INEC Chairman, Professor Amupitan. Now, a lot of newspapers this morning, more than half a dozen to be specific, headline the story from the angle of the charge given to him by President Bola Tinubu following his swearing-in ceremony yesterday at the State House. Now, the business editor of one of the newspapers on the review this morning, Mr. Sam Otouye, is our virtual guest. Before the interruption, he was making his points on the assignment in terms of the timeline between the swearing-in and November 8th governorship elections in Anambra. Mr. Sam, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
All right, Mr. Sam, my question before the interruption was the most senior director in INEC, Agbamuche, did say that the foundations have already been laid for the new INEC boss. But considering the time between his official assumption of office and the guber elections in Anambra, how much would he do differently in terms of changing the perception of the conduct of such an election?
Yeah, thank you so much. You see, that's why I said earlier that what the president asked him to do, using Anambra as a litmus test, is not proper, because it is too close to call. He's swearing in and the time of the election. Actually, what he's going to do there is to look at, dotting the T's and crossing the T's and dotting the I's. That's basically what he will do now, because for even the Abamuche that Mr. Abamuche that said, look, the foundation is already laid for you. What she said is correct, because they've been working on that process all this while, So he coming to take over is just to ask them, where have you stopped? What did you do? Did you do this? And, just crossing the T's and dotting the I's. That is what he's going to do now. So whatever the outcome of that election is going to be, will not be wholly, will not be put to him, as a matter of fact. But then, as I said earlier, that Anambra election, as it stands today, is a walkover. So INEC Chairman can go home and sleep, because Anambra, that election, the outcome is already determined. Determined in the sense that Soludo Abga is the party. And I say this again, that APC, that would have been, a party to put up a fight with Abga, the candidates are not very strong. They're not very strong. The other time it was in the papers, online everywhere, that the Okachukwu of the candidate of APC, we saw the video where somebody was challenging him, that he was owing him and all of those. And he's into real estate. So there are a lot of issues. His deputy, the former senator. We also saw her own trajectory with Soludo's wife, accusing her of some irrelevant issues. So they've reduced their own position to where people have seen them as not being serious. So that's why I said, PDP is not really existing for now. So whether they don't even have a candidate. I wonder whether they later fielded a candidate in PDP, So what I'm saying is that Anambra election, as it stands today, has been decided by the masses, by the electors. Soludo will win and win landslide, and that is what it is. So whether the INEC chairman puts in any effort, the game is already done. He should just wait and prepare himself for other elections. But for Anambra, yes, Mrs. Abamuche has
Well, once again, we must sincerely apologize for the quality of connection this morning. In the opinion and view of Mr. Sam Otouye, he feels that a lot of the foundation indeed has been laid by Agbamuche, who handed over to the new INEC chairman, and there's very little who could do. But it's also pertaining to the peculiarity of Anambra with the situation in the southeast as it pertains to security. Now, INEC had also informed the media that they had deployed materials for mock accreditation, and as we would also be looking to have a coverage of the election in real time with the developments, with our reporters also dispatched to Anambra. Best be sure that ADBN would do its best to give you coverage of that election. But in the interim, as it owes to issues on peculiarity of security concerns, what's your take on that, Mr. Sam?
So they've laid the foundation, they've done all the processes, but then
Hello, sir. I'm struggling to hear you, and I'm hoping that is not the same for our viewer this morning. But if you could take that point again, I couldn't quite clearly hear you.
okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now much better. Please go over the point again.
That the foundation has been laid for him, according to Mrs. Abamuche, right? So
Now, INEC has reported that ahead of November 8th Anambra Gubo poll, it has dispatched its team and has arrived in Anambra for mock accreditation. We're talking about the number of votes that would also count toward deciding the winner of the Gubo polls. INEC has it on record that about 2.3 million votes would be deciding the outcomes of the poll. Now, beyond Anambra, another call on the desk of the INEC chairman is on the need to make the 2027 polls transparent and violence-free. Well, this indeed will be our focus in a meantime. At this point on the program, we'll also revisit the front page of the Daily Monitor to look at the outcome of the INEC meeting with the charge given to state governors by the Vice President Kashim Shettima. Now, the lead headline as seen on the Daily Monitor this morning reads, Shettima to governors, improve citizens' lives rather than rhetorics, says measure of government not in speeches delivered but in lives improved. Next says, Nigeria's solid minerals being illegally mined, stolen. Raises probe panel. Sets up committee to overhaul, revamp security training institutions nationwide. I'm hoping that the connection between our studio and Mr. Sam's residence is much better. Let's reattempt to get Mr. Sam's view on this. Mr. Sam, listening to the VP and his charge to the state governors, what's your remark?
yeah, thank you very much. Can you take it again? I didn't get it then. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, sir. Did you get my question?
Okay, please. Yes, take it again, please.
Carry on, please.
Take it again. I didn't get it.
My question is off the back of NEC meeting and the VP's charge to governors, saying that the measure of government is in how much of the citizens' life has been improved, rather than the rhetorics they make, charging them to therefore improve the life of citizens by making the standard of living even better for them. What do you make of this charge by the VP to state governors?
Is a good one. The charge is in the right direction. And I can tell you of a truth that some governors are keying in. You know, the other time the president made the same charge when he asked them to go and look into their communities and all of those, gave out some money and all of those. So it's making some sense. I would want to mention the governor of Imo State, Governor Hope Uzodimma, and what he has done for Imo civil servants, increasing their salary almost by 50%, right? That thing he has done has changed the trajectory of Imo State and their standard of living. Because when somebody that was earning, say, 180,000 is now earning about 300 and something thousand, you find out that the condition of living, the standard of living, and the peace and tranquility in that state would improve. If you go into Owerri, if you go into Imo State, you see that money is changing hands. The traders are getting the money, people are buying because more money has been made available to the civil servants, and the thing is circulating. So I think other governors should also take a cue and increase salaries, because this money we are talking about, the money is already with them. It's just that some governors don't want to bring it out. To the extent of, you saw what happened during COVID, when even materials, goods, that were brought, food items, they just lock them up in storehouses and all of those. So that is the same way the money is available, but they don't want to bring it out. So is a clarion call for governors to begin to bring out money meant for the state and let the people enjoy it. Governor Zorima has done well in that direction, and other governors I know have also done well in that direction. And more governors should key in. I think that is what the VP was talking about, and they really need to do something about it. That is very important.
Well, moving on, let's look at a CBN report. You're a business editor, and you'd be able to do some fine numbers and the implications of this report. The report states that medical tourism spending falls 52% under Tinubu. I don't know what the implication of this is in terms of the state of our healthcare, because doctors have been on strike for a while, and if medical tourism is falling, is it falling based on the elite's patronage for medical tourism? What are some of the indicators and implications of this report from the CBN on medical tourism, in your opinion?
Yeah, thank you so much. Medical tourism has been part of Nigeria leaders, or leadership, as it were, because they always go there to seek medical attention and all. If we say that the thing has fallen, we need to see it in the quality of hospitals we have in Nigeria, because that will determine how and who goes to those hospitals. Because it's not been long, we saw what happens in the hospitals in Abuja, right? If you go to the states, that is the same situation. So nothing much has improved. When medical tourism issue and budget can be seen to be fallen, is when hospitals are being equipped, Nigerian hospitals, so that even the rich men that used to travel outside the country will begin to use their services. But today, that is not the situation. So what CBN, all these things we say them for the purpose of the international community, foreign investors to hear and come in and do business with us. They are not really the truth. That is what it is. They're not really the truth. Because CBN cannot tell us, with this report they've given, the number of hospitals that have been equipped that would make people, leaders, politicians, and businessmen to use their services instead of traveling abroad. Because that is where, talking about the doctors that have been on strike the other day, we saw them, how much of money have they been given? And how has it changed their mentality and their service orientation? Because many a time we see hospital personnel, snapping at patients and, so much of a misdemeanor and all of those, because possibly they are not happy with what they are getting in terms of pay, right? So those are the indices. Those are the parameters. So you can't tell us that medical tourism has dropped by 52%. What are the parameters? We need to see them. And when we see them, we need to verify them. That is where we, the media, have to come in. Because when they churn out all these indices and data and all of those, we need to interrogate those data and find out whether they're correct. Not just churning them out. That's the truth. So for me, that report might not be really correct, because many hospitals, as it stands today, are still under-equipped. So what is the attraction, of patients, particularly the politically exposed and the high-profile business people, to use their services? That is when you talk about, the indices being correct. But until we see such, we cannot trust that data. That's my opinion there.
Coincidentally, the other feature story on the front page of your newspaper says Nigeria, nation plagued by unending strikes, and you go on to list NAD and ARDFCT amongst over 20 other unions that have headlined industrial action in the year 2025. Speaking to the health angle of things, how much can the government attend to the urgent need to more or less assuage the yearnings of doctors in the country to improve our quality of medical and healthcare delivery?
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, we that's a big story today, and it was highly researched because I was part of the reporters that did that research. You know, I handled the oil and gas aspect, where you saw the other day the Pengasin and all of those and all of those and all of those. So, but for the health, yes, you see, just like ASU, health personnel are asking for improved condition of service, improved equipment of hospitals, you know, and those things are not all the time personal. Yes, salaries, increase my salary is personal, but then that one also rubs off on the services, you know, people get. It rubs off on the psyche of the staff, of the personnel, right? But everything put together, there is urgent need to address those issues they've raised. Because, you see, when you're not happy with what you're doing, your output will be poor. That is what it is. So they need to address their, you see, when you don't look at inflation and you say you are increasing salary, and at the end of the day, the salary does not amount to anything, it can change the trajectory. If they look at the economy and do the fundamental things and stabilize the economy, whereby even when you earn 50,000, it can take care of you. After all, overseas, how much is their salaries? When you're talking about I earn this, I earn that. But the only thing is that the economy is stable. Inflation is low. So whatever you're being paid takes care of you. That is the foundation, the government. You see, all these strikes, ASU and the health personnel, even if they go on strike 20 times and their salaries are increased 20 times, it will still amount to nothing if the fundamental thing is not addressed, which is what is causing this inflation. That is one thing that government must have in mind. Not this fire brigade approach. We are going on strike. You say, okay, don't go. We'll add something to your salary and all of those. Those things are not helping matters. Those things are aggravating the situation. They should look into the depth, you know, the foundation of the problem. So for medical doctors and medical personnel, yes, they need to have a better life. They compare themselves with their overseas counterparts, and they look back and say, oh, look, we are not being well treated. They should improve their condition of service, equip the hospitals for them, you know, and make life easy for even the patients, so that at patients and all of those. Those are indicators of lack of satisfaction, you know, with what they are doing. And then the level of decadence in the system, which the government has not addressed. So they need to address all those, and I think things will get better. Thank you.
Now, with the hopes of your last statement, things would get better, the quality of life in Nigeria and standard of living, plotted against the graph of life expectancy, happens to not be amongst the top 10 best indices across Africa. Now, we're looking at another report coming in that the House of Representatives has proposed that house rent increments must not exceed 20% of the existing rent. It's been a major issue, particularly in cosmopolitan cities like Lagos and Abuja, where the rent has been quite a headache for residents. What do you make of this proposal, and how do you see it being enforced?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a very important issue. But let me say this. Even they that are making the laws, you know, they are not absorbed from the implication, right? From the problem. Because most of them have houses all over. and they're charging those things, right? So, but the point here is that they must make housing affordable. Government must go into mass housing production, so that all these civil servants, when they sold the kubwa and all those facilities to staff, today they are no more paying rent. If you handle the quantum of civil servants, right, with accommodation, personal accommodation, based on long-term loan for them to repay, you have reduced this house rent problem, because the remaining people now, even the landlords, will be afraid to increase, house rent exorbitantly, right, out of proportion, because most people must have been accommodated. So let them go into mass housing, particularly for civil servants. It will reduce this. And let me say this again: the greed in the country is a problem. I will tell you what happened to me last 2 years, last year, in terms of this accommodation thing in Owerri, where I paid. My wife is an associate professor in the university in Imo State, and when she was made head of department, because I live in Enugu, my family, right? I'm in Abuja, but my family lives in Enugu. I have a house in Enugu. So my wife used to go to work from Enugu to Owerri. So when she was made head of department, which is purely administrative, more or less, right? So she needed to live in Owerri, and we went for an apartment. I tell you something: the man that owned the house had to jack up the rent because of what others are doing, against what his caretaker told him. Because his caretaker told him that, no, Oga, this thing is on the high side. Why not make it this? He said, no, go to this place, that house there, they are collecting this. The other one, they are collecting this. I'm going to make it this. The caretaker told me this. That he was like, okay, if you say so, anytime you see people that will pay now, me, I've told you, right? But I tell you something. The caretaker was disappointed that people were coming to pay, which involved me. I paid for that apartment because we needed it. My wife needed to be on ground to do her job, right? So it's a question of greed. Even the House of Reps cannot control it, because if I take this matter to them now, are they going to sue the landlord? They cannot sue the landlord because there's no evidence. I've paid him, he has given me receipt, So how would you know the last rent that was paid, that he now increased? So these things are not things that can easily be felt by prosecution. No. That just making these laws for making laws, sake, but they are not practicable. They are not practicable. But then, if they want to achieve it as a government, all they need to do is to do mass housing. Mass housing will help. Let them go to communities, because there are local government areas. You see, this is another point that will bring local government autonomy to effect. There are local governments everywhere. There are local government staff. Local governments can float housing programs for their staff, right? So when they do all this, it will come to a point where almost everybody, will have an accommodation of his or her own. And the issue of rent and increment of rent will naturally become, outdated, right? So let them address the foundation, the fundamentals. That will help and check the situation, not in making laws that are not practicable. The description that I made concerning the house in Owerri I got for my wife, and how the rent was jacked up, arbitrarily, based on the landlord's what do I call it now? Knowledge of what other landlords are collecting, as it were, So, but what I'm saying, the point of note there is, even the caretaker told him, advised him that, sir, look at what's going on here, and look at what this thing should be. He refused because others are doing it. This the law would have been so wonderful if it can be implemented, right? If it can be implemented, it would have been wonderful, and it would have reduced this unnecessary, arbitrary hike of rentals. But then the fact remains that somebody that is desperate to get a house, to get an accommodation, wouldn't want to take his landlord to court, you know, because he knows that the landlord is in charge. He quit him, and he remains, quit out of that house because it's not his house. So I am saying that the more fundamental thing to be done is to float mass housing, for the citizens up to the local government
Yes,
level,
on the mass
right?
housing
That
issue you raised, I was asking how would you rate the current administration's drive to provide mass housing through what it is called the Renewed Hope Homes, supposed to be spread across different states of the federation. How do you rate that initiative? Has it moved the needle towards achieving mass housing for Nigerians, in your opinion?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it would have been a wonderful thing if the federal government alone can do it. But I know that the federal government alone cannot do that. Floating houses across the nation and all that. No. You see, I've been talking about this foundation, the fundamentals. If they empower the local governments, right, and give them what is due them in terms of, financial autonomy that has been even settled, yet not implemented, that even the local governments can float housing units for their staff and for anybody within the local government that has the ability to pay back. You see, that's the point I'm making here. The state governments can go into such as well and float housing. So it's not a federal government thing. It's not a renewed hope agenda thing that is coming from the federal government. It should trickle down to the local government. But the local government cannot do anything when they don't have financial autonomy. Where is the money they will use to do so? It's when they have money that they can do that and get it back, from their staff and other well-meaning members of the local government and all of those. That is the way it will run. I know that the Ministry of Housing and Federal Mortgage Bank and all of those, they are doing some things. The other day I read about the housing units, what do you call AH National Housing whatever fund or something is doing. Those ones are good, but they cannot be enough. They're only scratching the surface. For them to get it right and get it run across the country as being what they want to achieve, they must get the state and local governments involved. And they get them involved not by floating 200 units in one state and they say they've gone across the country. No, empower those areas, empower the local government, let them have the financial autonomy so that they can do on their own too what they are supposed to do. The state governments also should be empowered. They normally have their meetings. If they give state governors, look, we want you to help us and float housing units across the state, they will do so because the president is in charge. And this in his politics. See what is happening today. Everybody is joining APC because APC is in power. So that same strength, that same authority, that same power, if the president tells governors to do one or two things, to help his government trickle down to the state and the local government, they will do. The important thing is let them know that, look, I want you to help me do this. They will do it. So it is all about getting these people to do what is right. When it aligns with what the VP told them yesterday at the fake meeting, at the meeting, that they should go and help their states and improve the standard of living of their people. It's part of it. Accommodation is very key. It's important. So they should go ahead and do all those. So the Renew Hope agenda that will float accommodation across it, wonderful, but they can't do it alone. They must empower other units, the sub-nationals. That's my take on it.
Thank you very much this morning, Mr. Sam, for your take and inputs to the issues discussed on the program. We appreciate you and wish you the best of your weekend ahead.
Thank you so much. I appreciate.
Have a nice day, sir. We're going to a quick commercial break, and when we return, we'll turn our attentions to other issues raised at the INEC meeting, as a probe panel has been constituted to look into issues of illegal mining and theft of gold in Nigeria. Stay tuned.